Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Krogdahl and Ville Sointu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello and welcome back to Fintech Daydreaming. We are here with another episode of Nordic Fintech Highlights. My name is Ville Sointu. I will be your host for today's episode. And as always, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Paul. So, Paul, how are you today?
As always, I'm good, Ville. I think we need to find some new way of having this intro section because we always keep saying this. I am Paul or I am Ville, and I can't do this alone, so I'm here with my co-host, Paul or Ville. We need to find a new way of doing it, I think. But
I don't think so. I mean, people like consistency, right? So you need to have this kind of familiar sounding thing in the beginning to make you feel comfortable. And for anybody who's listening to us for the first time, they might want to hear our names. So I think there's like a tradition with that, with the intro stuff. So let's talk about it at least.
But that aside, no, I'm good. I am feeling that summer is slowly coming to an end here in Finland. But apart from that, the sun is shining. It was pouring with rain this morning, and there was a full-on thunderstorm when I woke up. So it's nice to have the sunshine back and a little bit of heat and feeling good and relaxed. And for us to sit down and talk about fintech and all the interesting things. And talking about fintech, we should also point out for everybody that we are heading towards Copenhagen. But unfortunately, by the time this is published, we will already be in Copenhagen. So I hope all of you enjoyed the time with us in Copenhagen now that this has been published, but before we recorded it. You get what I mean.
So there's a time jump for you, but okay, good. So hello to us in the future and us in the past. I don't know how this works anymore, but okay, good. Let's move along and bring our other co-host into the conversation as well. So, Janne, how are things there at Helsinki Fintech Farm?
Things were regular, but now I got this kind of Christopher Nolan kind of vibe that which day I'm actually in right now. So got a bit confused, but otherwise I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, exactly. And indeed, we are going to the Nordic Fintech Week in Copenhagen, or we have gone. Okay, this is going to be a recurring theme for this episode, I think. But it was fun. It's gonna be fun. But anyway, we did make this comparison that out of the Nordic fintech festivals. I mean, Janne, of course, you're the one working with the Fintech Summit in Helsinki. The one in Copenhagen actually has the nicest venue. So, what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, venue, but then if you take our weather and that stuff, so I think it's quite hard to beat that.
Okay, fair enough. We tried to start
But
this
yeah, it's
rivalry,
good to be
but
fair.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. But hey, let's start with the conversation. I guess people want to hear a little bit about fintech topics as well before they get their heads a little more confused with the time jump. So let's start with the overview from you, Janne. So how was August in the Nordic fintech scene?
Well, so while after July we were quite surprised that hey, didn't anyone get the memo that it's summer holidays, and it was extremely busy in July. So now apparently everyone took their time off in August because it was really quiet month. I don't think it's anything to be worried about. It's usual that actually August is a bit more quiet. But yeah, there was a funding record, 0 funding rounds in August. That was truly a new thing. But yeah, there were still things happening. So Visma acquired 2 more companies. We'll get into that a bit later, and also Swedbank got Barclays stake in Entercard. Otherwise, in Sweden again, company called Borgo acquired Hypoteket's technical mortgage platform with an option to expand to their full customer base. And then on the ESG side, a company called Position Green, they bought a Norwegian carbon management startup, More Scope. So quite many things on the M&A market. Then also on the banking, neo-banking side, Pleo is partnering with Lemon Markets from Germany to launch investment accounts to German business customers, which is something I haven't really seen much actually in the kind of SME neo-banking space, but that's very interesting as well.
It is an interesting contrast indeed into July, because we were talking about the fact that the Nordic Fintech never sleeps, not even during the summer month of July, which is usually the month when nothing ever happens in the Nordics. And now we get this complete freeze. So are people doing their summer vacations later? Or, I mean, again, it's anybody's guess, I suppose. But I was personally surprised when I looked at the newsletter. I was like, did I get half the letter? Because usually it's like I have a very difficult time choosing which story to cover in these news episodes we do. But this time I was actually looking at, is there anything interesting here? So how does it actually compare to last year's August? Do you remember?
Yeah, I just checked. Last year was, I guess August was last year also the most quiet month of the year, but still it was maybe 50 or even 100% more news in August. So yeah, it was quite a contrast, but kind of still following some kind of pattern.
It'll be interesting to see how this pans out over the next couple of months. I'm really hoping this isn't the start of a new trend that's going to show a downward spiral driven by financial uncertainty and geopolitical
I think already
situations.
at this point of September, there's been happening quite a many things. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Did you guys, by the way, start trading with the Klarna stock last week, or when was it?
I did get a very small amount just for the principle of having a little, but yeah, not really. No. How about you, Paul?
I generally tend to keep my investment portfolio to myself. So I'm not going to share whether I have bought any shares or not. I'll keep that to myself, or within a circle of close friends. Definitely not on the internet like this.
All right. That's fair enough. I do believe when you get a tiny fraction like I did, just for out of curiosity, I think it's okay to say that. But I would agree with you. If it would be a larger portion, I would definitely say I have no idea what you're talking about. So anyway, so good. Let's get on with the show, so to say. And of course, the next thing that we have to get off our chest right now is the usual joke. As usual, Janne, it's your honors to do the joke for the news episode. So what do you have in store for us today?
Yes. So why can't you use the word beef stew as your computer or online bank password?
I really dread knowing the answer to this, but
yeah, please tell us.
It's not strong enough.
Oh no. We keep on delivering strong results on the joke front. I can I can say that not really meaning it, right? But okay, good. Thank you for that. I mean, meat stews are very hearty food, good for the September time, I believe, considering the weather. So I think we're on the right track here at least. Yeah, it looks like Paul almost fell out of his chair because of this joke. So hopefully he's okay.
I laughed my Apple earpod straight out of my ear. So yes, that was very good. Thank you, Janne. Yes, thank you very much. I have to admit, I do like a good stroganoff, actually.
Indeed.
Yes.
Especially if you like stew in a good time. But okay, but enough about stroganoffs. Let's get on with the show, to the actual content which everybody is expecting us to deliver here, and that's the news. So we are going to cover one news article each, as always, and this time we're going to start with you, Paul. So which one did you pick out of the few we saw in the list this month?
Yeah, I have to admit that just as you said, Ville, very often I look at the newsletter that you send out once a month, Janne, and go, oof, there's so much good stuff here. I wish I could talk about half of it. This time I looked down the list and went, ugh. So nothing really grabbed my attention, but there was one that I thought was interesting because we have spoken quite a lot in the past around the need for banks to modernize their environments, to do core transformations and those sort of things. But we've seen a general decline, I would say, in banks doing a single vendor big bang transformation. I think the last one that I have on my radar are still trying to do it, and it's one of the Nordic banks, and we just won't say anything. Actually, I lie. There is two Nordic banks, one Finnish bank, one Nordic bank. I'm not going to mention any of them now. If you listen to us enough, you know exactly who we're talking about. But I was intrigued to see that a small, actually they're not that small, are they? Coop Norge, who is actually more of a retail outlet. They're a cooperative focusing on retail, but being a cooperative, they also have a membership system fairly similar to a lot of the retail outlets do these days. And being a co-op, you pay yourself in to become a member of the co-op, and therefore the Coop Norge have got a core banking system, a legacy core banking system, and they've just signed an agreement with Mambu to do a modernization. So they're going to be doing if I remember correctly, it was a 5-year project to migrate onto the Mambu platform. They've enlisted a Nordic company called Knowit to be the system integrators. I believe Knowit is out of Norway with some offices across Finland and Sweden. I had to look into the news article a little bit carefully because Knowit are also a software provider. So they've got a whole offering that plugs into Mambu. So I was trying to figure out if Knowit were just delivering the capabilities for the integration or whether they were going to be the system integrator as well. But from what I can see, their predominant role is to be the system integrator to implement Mambu for Coop Norge. So I think this is good. It's interesting. It's nice again to see some banks moving in this modernization journey. Maybe this is the start of a returning trend. Again, what I think is interesting is seeing someone go for a single vendor strategy where, most these days we're talking about multi-core or core-less and an ecosystem of providers. But then at the same time, Coop they're not one of the large banks in the Nordic. They are just running a banking capability for their retail outlet members. So that's the one that I found that I thought was most interesting.
Yeah, it is, and it does feel like a bit of a déjà vu. I mean, we really haven't seen these kind of core migration things happening for a while now, at least here in the Nordics.
But I think in Norway there's actually been a bit more action still. It's not that bad curse word there as it's maybe in Finland. But yeah.
Could be, and but yeah, that's. I mean, at least it hasn't caught my eye, and maybe it's just because my bias of sitting here in Finland, like you said. But yeah, it's interesting to see that this kind of, well, maybe it popped up because we didn't have too many news articles in the to begin with for August. But again, it's fun to see familiar names here. So first of all, the cooperative structure of Coop Norge here is interesting because they have 2.3 million members in their membership program, and as far as I've understood from the news article is that each and every one of these are basically will automatically get an account. So even if it's not your primary bank, but then again you do have 2.3 million plus accounts to migrate no matter what. And this makes me think that most of these things that our Coop Norge is serving here in terms of banking are fairly simple. And in those cases, providers like Mambu can actually be a great choice because, again, if it's a very simple thing that you have to move, you don't have any complicated products or any complicated service portfolios to basically migrate into the new platform, it could be fairly straightforward and low risk activity in the end, which is not given, of course, for core banking. Yes, Paul, it looks like you have an opinion.
No, yeah, I do, because one of the things that caught me with this news item, both good and bad, is that it's Mambu. Right, so if you look at the catchment area for Mambu, they're very strong in certain parts of the world. They're not very strong in the Nordics. They haven't got a lot of installments in the Nordics. And secondly, there is a growing flower of number of cloud native core banking providers in the Nordics. You've got Toom, admittedly, as they're in the Baltics. You've got Aura Cloud as another example. So, and yeah, you even have the large Tietoevry banking platform in Norway that's running there. So it was for me, it was refreshing to see Mambu in the headlights again, and especially being here in the Nordics. So that was an interesting one, that it was Mambu rather than one of the local players.
So Janne, any opinions, views on this?
Yeah, definitely. Like I mentioned, I guess there has been a few more of this core banking news this year from Norway. Tietoevry, obviously a big, more traditional player, closing a few deals, and now I think this was perhaps already second deal for Mambu from Norway this year. But yeah, I think generally this core banking renewal thing, it was something that 10 years ago banks were proud to announce it. But now they rather keep quiet about this kind of stuff, because it's quite much associated with excessive costs and service interruptions and management hair loss. So it's something that obviously many companies still have to do, but how is it like all at once, or are they trying to do it kind of piece by piece? But definitely like interesting to see this new kind of fintech era SaaS kind of providers also in the equation with traditional banks.
Yeah, and at least they're doing a good job managing the expectations. The news said that they are saying that it's going to take between 4 to 8 years. So that's quite.
That's realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's realistic, and it's also very safe because you have like a 4-year buffer there built in. So I would guess that maybe their current project plan is somewhere between 2 and 3 years, and then they build safety buffers on top of that. We'll see. Of course, the length of the project is also going to determine how much it will cost. Yes, Paul.
Yeah. 4 to 8 years is going to push them past the point of diminishing returns as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that project plays out and how much flexibility they will be able to put into the journey as they progress to those. If it is 8 years, I think that's a very, very, very long time to be looking at it. But maybe I could take the opportunity here as well, Ville, to highlight that I've actually got a book that's coming out early next year. I'm writing on this. I'm writing about how to do a progressive modernization, but to do it in a very different way and to reduce risk and increase the time to market and time to value. So this is very interesting to me, and I think saying they're going to do it over 8 years, I get perplexed. But I'll have a book all about this coming out next year.
So wow, so Coop said it's going to take 4 to 8 years to do that migration, and now you put yourself into a deadline that they actually have to deliver the book next year. So
actually, it was the publishers that have put me in the deadline. I need to deliver the finished manuscript early next year, and then they'll go through the process. So sometime in the middle of next year, my book will be out. Yes.
All right, good.
But I guess there are some core bank projects that are having kind of their 10-year anniversary right now or so on.
We just agreed that we're not going to talk about that.
I didn't mention any companies here.
There we go. Good. But that gives me a good segue to move over to you, Janne. So which news article did you choose this month?
Yes, so I took the Visma news. So Visma, as we know, it's a Norwegian software warehouse. The article said that they actually have more than 350 acquisitions in total, and only this year there's been 10. And now, recently, they acquired 2 accounting-related AI firms from the German-speaking market in Europe. So Milia.io, that's an AI-powered platform for accounting firms that automates and standardizes the internal workflows, basically between the accountant and customer. Sounds quite smart. And then also a taxi.io, which is as well an AI-powered solution, but that's more like a tax advisor, which is used by more than 1,500 tax firms and tax departments across Germany. And both of these companies are quite small. I checked maybe 10, 20 people, so quite early stage startups, obviously utilizing the latest AI technologies. And now they're being acquired. And of course, here the question is, Visma has a very strong track record of buying companies and kind of maybe a bit more loosely integrating them to their business and a portfolio, and it seems to work. But in general, there's always like a question is why are big companies acquiring smaller ones? Are they actually making use out of the technology, or are they just trying to kill competitors? And also from the startup perspective, is it a smart way to actually sell in an early stage? I understand many industries are kind of have the characteristic that if you want to succeed, you need some muscle and you need customer base and so on. So sometimes it makes sense, but there are also many things that could actually kill the entire company which was acquired. So how do you guys see this kind of M&A game going on between the startups and bigger corporations?
It's from my perspective, it's again predictable move. It seems like in different regions, again, Visma being very present, of course, here in the Nordics, in the accounting space in general. It's all about who gets to keep the customer interface. So it's kind of a platform play. And the more services, the better services, the more you're able to have on your platform, then that should be better for you, because you will become the one place you go to handle your daily needs in that business. Gives you a lot of course, as we have discussed in many of our platform episodes, it gives you the benefit of being able to upsell and get more data from the customers. So this is about basically, I think, hedging their bets and making sure that they are the one competitive interface, not only in the services that they provide, but continuing to provide a broader portfolio of services that the customers would never have to leave the Visma site. From the bank's perspective, this is interesting because, again, we've also talked a lot about from banks' ambitions to provide embedded finance services. So Visma would be one of the platforms where they would embed services into banking services into their platform as well. This brings the question, what is the bank's embedded finance strategy in general? Are you happy by letting your customers be in other interfaces on other platforms using your services, or are you using that as a way to drive more loyalty to your own channels as a bank by pulling these customers away from these other platforms and so forth and so forth? So again, it's going to be an interesting play. I think what's happening now is a lot of consolidation in order to secure these quote unquote eyeballs on your own channels, and then seeing how to play in this space. The other element you mentioned as well is interesting, Janne, which is the fact that as the other side of this transaction, are you as a small company, are you better to compete or basically to be part of something bigger and kind of get your well-earned profits from your small company by being part of something bigger? But Paul, what are your thoughts?
Well, start in reverse from what you ended with. Isn't it generally the wish of every founder that whatever they create gets purchased because that puts cash in their pocket? So irrespective of what phase you're in, you walk away with a large sum of money in your pocket, and if you're lucky and they don't just swallow up the company and rip it apart, you have a job for a little while as well. So you get the best of both worlds. So from the small fintech side, I can see this fantastic. It's great. From Visma's side, they've bought two companies in Germany, early stage companies in Germany. Have they done that with a focus on the German market, or have they done that with an intention to bring those capabilities into their existing market, which plays a little bit into what you were saying, Ville? Are they doing this to try and gain footprint in a new market, or strengthen in a relatively new market? Or are they looking at this to quickly be able to bring new capabilities and embed new services into their existing platform and offerings? So I don't know, Janne, if I have to be honest and say that I didn't look at the news article in great detail, but do you have any view on the strategic intent as to whether they're doing this to gain more in Germany or to bring that into the Nordic?
Actually, no, there wasn't any like kind of details on that perspective. Of course, I think quite often when it comes to accounting and tax, that's fairly local stuff. But then, of course, the technology is always scalable. You just need to change the parameters.
Well, tax is definitely.
Yeah, I wish it was that simple in everything. But the and I'm sure it's actually not here as well. But I think again, it's a good point. They wanted more local expertise as well. So that was another part of the equation. And then on the other hand, using that expertise to roll out new features in other countries as well. Coming back to the question about the broadening your service portfolio or enhancing your services in order to be a more attractive platform in general. But yeah, you were saying, Paul.
No, it's just what you just said there, Janne, is actually very correct. Tax tends to be very local. There are some taxation rules that are fairly similar across Europe, but tax is a very, very local geographical thing. So if the solutions that they have picked up from Germany is very German-centric towards the German taxation rules, then bringing that into Norway or the Nordics could actually be a big piece of work. So I'm wondering, like you said, both of them are AI-based, so it might be the AI capabilities that are more interesting than anything else.
Indeed. And interesting to see in the future, we will probably learn whether the timing of this acquisition was right and for whom. Interestingly enough, there's just this week we heard about the news of the very famous fintech startup Curve getting a fairly low valuation when being bought out by Lloyds Bank. So again, something it was a unicorn at some point in time. I think it was valued like 2 or 3 billion. Now the transaction amount was much lower than that. I think it was 100+ million instead of billions. So again, is this going to be another Curve story, or is it going to be the exact right time to join a big company and make it fly? We will, of course, see how it evolves. Good. Any last words on the Visma news before we move on?
Nope, nothing from me.
All right, good. Let's move on to the third story, and indeed the last story of this week's episode, and that is coming from Sweden. Swedish bank Swedbank, as we all know very well, has decided to buy out Barclays Bank's stake on Entercard. So Entercard is a card company in Sweden, and they issue their own cards, but they also provide services to other financial institutions to run their card programs. And this setup between Swedbank and Barclays was originally founded in 2005 when they decided that building this joint venture for this common capability to do cards in the Nordics was a good idea, basically spinning it out from the bank and then outsourcing your cards programs into an external entity and then running it together. Now Barclays has decided to, as part of their portfolio strategy in general, was to exit this position, and now it's fully owned by Swedbank, as far as I understood, or at least a very large majority of Entercard is owned by Swedbank again. The reason I picked this news was that the dynamics of the card business is changing a little bit now in the coming years in the Nordic countries, and this kind of structural changes are a bit of I would say maneuvering around, preparing for those changes coming forward as well. And these changes are related to basically two different factors at the moment. There is the increasing level of crypto activity, of course, but we will leave that aside for a moment. The other part is the increased amount of payments moving on to mobile wallet and digital wallet rails, which are basically typically also linked directly into account-to-account rails. A lot of the card issuing and account holding banks are looking into how is the account to account going to change the market dynamics when it comes to their cards business. We actually had a very interesting discussion about this as well as part of our working group or expert group in Mobi Forum, but and that's why I also found this news to be quite interesting. And the reason why it's interesting, especially from a bank perspective, is that cards business is a very good business if you're a bank who is doing the issuing of the cards, because whenever somebody uses your card, whether that's a debit card or a credit card on either on one of the large card schemes, then you as the account holding institution or the card issuing institution will get an interchange fee. Now, when you get that fee, of course, then you're happy. It's a nice position to be in. And whenever there is a new mobile wallet, for example, coming in and saying that they want to do account to account, typically these account to account transactions are very, very cheap, or at least very low fee or almost free compared to the interchange that the banks get from the card schemes. This disincentivizes the banks to actually do anything in the account to account space, and that's why we are in a world where many of the banks are looking into positions to moving closer to the wallets and also optimizing their setups when it comes to both issuing and acquiring of payment instruments, both on account to account and card rails. So while there is no explicit connection in this piece of news about Swedbank's thoughts around the possible decline of card revenues, I think it's an interesting thing to follow as well, because these legal structures and joint ventures are definitely one way that you can make your moves in the world where the card revenues are more under pressure, I would say. But Paul, I mean, when you look at the card market in general and the kind of legal structures built around the cards here in the Nordics, does this piece of news tinker your spidey senses in any way?
I was actually thinking about something slightly different, although yes, as you very elegantly laid out the whole world of cards and the impact it has on the banks and the issuers and everything else. There is a larger trend that I've seen maybe over the last, I would even say, years, and that is large banks divesting their out of core market businesses, right? We've seen it with Handelsbanken here in the Nordics saying we're going to stop our business in Finland and move out of Finland and focus more on our domestic market. I'm wondering whether this was driven by Barclays saying we want to pull our focus back and therefore we will divest areas that we don't see as being potential high growth for us in the future. I mean, what else business does Barclays have as anything substantial in the Nordics? So why maintain this little satellite island? Yes, let go of it. And I think that's, if you asked me, and I could be very wrong here, and someone from Barclays or Swedbank might come and bonk us over the head here, but I think this was just a simple cost-cutting exercise for Barclays.
For Barclays, I would say yes. I mean, 20 years is a long time, so that's when they started. So for all we know, Barclays had very different plans for this market when they entered this JV, and those might have changed. In the press release, they say it's part of their capital light strategy, which also is a continuation of their earlier divestments in other companies. Something called Brookfield Asset Management, for example, they have divested as well. So again, the story makes sense from that perspective. What would have been interesting to go back a little bit in time and think that what has changed since 2005, other than this moving on to a capital light approach, was there perhaps other plans in the Nordics? But anyway, that's a story that we will never hear, I would presume.
Although I think we can draw some parallels here as well, because if we go back that amount of time in history, we'll end up in a place where the banks were very bullish. A lot of the large banks were looking for global domination. They were trying to grow. They were very heavily looking at new markets and figuring out how they could get footsteps into new markets. The banks were in a probably what they felt was a lower risk environment. Things have changed an awful lot. So I think that's the basics. Everybody was looking for expansion, fast expansion and global expansion.
Indeed, indeed. Well, Janne, would you have a Barclays card in your pocket if they did make the Nordic expansion once upon a time?
Well, I'm not sure if I need any more cards because, we without a doubt, cards are the space in fintech and finance which has been growing and has been the most visible. There's most end users, whether it's consumer or business, probably most also funding gone down that drain. And of course the question is what is the end game here? So maybe for Barclays could be a smart move to pull out. Of course, it's the same everywhere in the world. There's newcomers in the market all the time. Of course, in the Nordics, we have more card payments are more common, of course, than what it was 20 years ago. But still, the market isn't growing massively. So there's just new companies coming up. So it's interesting to see how we will eventually land in this entire kind of card competition and do they expect every consumer to have 20 cards or what?
Yeah, exactly. And coming back to the points I tried to make earlier about the structures and business structures, the cards business in general has been around for such a long time, like you said, Janne, and is so established in the Nordics. It is a good candidate for what we would describe as common infrastructure or shared infrastructure, because it's very well established and the business is well known. So there are commonalities between the card programs. I mean, ultimately, like you said, if you look at a card from different banks today, they are quite similar. There's some small differences, but as a thing that you use or a service that you use, there's not kind of that much differentiation there. If you reflect that to the part that, okay, well, could this be then service from a similar service provider as well, for example? The answer is probably yes. So I think the original reasons why they kind of spun out or started this JV between Swedbank and Barclays, from Swedbank's perspective, maybe the idea was to create this kind of common infrastructure. Again, I haven't looked into Entercard in a very long time, so I don't actually know if they are selling their services to other banks at the moment or not. But I'm sure there is this kind of multi-tenancy opportunities here as well, even moving forward, even now with the full ownership of Swedbank. Good. But again, considering that it was a very slow month in August, like we talked about, I think we did find some interesting things to talk about, and we managed to spend a lot of time doing it. So, but with that being said, I think we are quite close to closing the episode. Paul, did you want to mention anything before we close for this week?
Yes, it was fantastic to have seen you next week in Copenhagen, which was been by the time you see this.
Yeah, play the Inception or soundtrack or whatever here. But okay, I guess I enjoyed it. Question mark? Find out next time. But good. Janne, how about you? Which time are you in?
I can't decide, so I could agree that latest, let's see at the Nordic Banking Forum, which is in December. So that's at least in the future.
Yeah, that we agree on. So glad we found our totem for any Nolan fans out there. Okay, good. So Janne, nothing more to mention before we close?
Remember to like and subscribe, of course, both Fintech Farm and Daydreaming.
Perfect. So you saved me from doing that as I always do in the end. So again, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell your friends. That's the way we get more listeners and we get more motivation to keep on pushing forward. At the moment, we're going strong. Because again, we are doing these events now more and more. We're meeting more of our fans and listeners live, which we thoroughly enjoy with Paul. So when you saw us, I don't know anymore. Please come and say hi, and maybe you can even be in the podcast itself as we do in these events. Good. I think we will close with that and leave the other usual things behind for this moment, and just complete by saying this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is
And we're done.
Fintech Daydreaming.